Welcome back, everyone. It is Eric from Candy, and as you can see, I'm back today checking out Japan's new Incandescent Arcana set. We've had a couple of these cards get revealed over the past couple of weeks, but now we have the full, set reveal, all the translations, all that good stuff that we're going to be checking out today. And I honestly haven't even gotten a chance to check out any of these latest reveals. So largely speaking, these are going to be my raw, knee-jerk first impressions today for you guys. But this is dropping over there in Japan next week, but it's still going to be, unfortunately, a little bit of time before we get these cards internationally. More than likely, all these cards are going to come out in the Silver Tempest set later this fall. So again, a couple months to go, but still want to check out these early cards, see what we have coming down the pipeline. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to stop rambling, but if you guys can, before we jump into these cards, just leave a like on the video, help feed that annoying YouTube algorithm to get the video, pumped out there for people to see. But with that being said, let's jump in and check out these new cards. So it looks like the first card of interest today is going to be the Serperior VSTAR. So these aren't new, unfortunately. We have seen these before, but Serperior V, not a particularly great card. The VSTAR, however, I do like a few things about this, if I remember correctly. Zero Retreat, that is something I actually really do like about this card a lot. Always nice to see. But Grass 2 Colorless does 190. Move any amount of energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way that you like. And then Coiling Star for Grass Energy, 60 for each energy attached to this Pokemon. And then you switch it with one of your bench Pokemon. You're basically just going in on this first attack. And I feel like you're just always moving your energy to your next superior. I think that's the general idea, because you attack your opponent, move all your energy to your next attacker, they attack you, and then you freely retreat into that next attacker and then keep the loop going. And I could even see how you could weave in Cheryl, into a couple of these turns where you move all your energy to your next attacker, you get swung on, you heal off all that damage, and then just keep that loop going. I think that's kind of the idea here. And you also could sort of go a route too where you just start piling energy slowly onto a bench superior for a big VSTAR power. Instead of moving all your energy, maybe you just move one or two at a time each time you attack, and just slowly build up a big superior on your bench to come in with Coiling Star. I do think we would need some energy acceleration for this hypothetical deck, especially if you wanted to have a big VSTAR attack. Just because I think with manual attachments, it's going to be kind of hard to build this up to a meaningful amount of damage. So we might need the help of Galarian Moltres, Galarian Moltres V, or any of these Pokemon that can cheat extra energies in play. Maybe a copy of Leafeon V could be good to lead the game with. I guess you also could play Cherrim. I know you can't attach energies to Superior with Cherrim, but you can slam down a ton of energies with Cherrim and then use the attack to move them to your Superiors. So, I mean, that's an option. That seems kind of cool. This doesn't scream super broken to me in the way a card I don't know, Arceus does or something like that, but I think there's something here. It is a little bit on the weaker side, so things like Hisuian Zoroark and Giratina can knock it out, but throw down a Big Charm maybe, or Radiant Gardevoir as your Radiant Pokemon of choice. I can see a world where this tanky, two-hit oriented Superior deck could maybe catch on, so I like this card. I'm a big Superior fan, so I'm just happy to see it get a multi-prize Pokemon finally, but decent Pokemon to lead the video off with. Okay, we have another Hisuian Lilligant card. We've been getting a ton of this Pokemon. Zero energy attack. You search your deck for up to 2 grass energy and attach them to your bench Pokemon any way that you like. So this is a cool attack, but not on a stage 1. If this was a basic, we'd be in business probably, but yeah, not a big fan of this. And actually, I guess in terms of a basic, we do have the Hisuian Electrode. It's a little bit limiting because it has to be on a specific turn of the game, but kind of does the same thing here. So not a fan of this, just far too slow. All right, so next we have another early reveal. We have the Radiant Serena here, one of the 3, I think, Radiant Pokemon we're getting in this set. It has this ability, once during your turn, you can heal 20 damage from each of your Pokemon. The attack kind of irrelevant here. But yeah, this is kind of similar to Radiant Gardevoir. It doesn't do the exact same thing, and there's definitely pros and cons to each of them. The big thing with Radiant Gardevoir that it has going for it is that it really helps prevent one-hit KOs. Whereas Serena, I think this would mainly be in a deck where you're already not gonna get one-hit KO'd, and as a result, you can get repeated use out of this. being able to heal the same Pokemon maybe turn after turn, because Radiant Gardevoir is basically just going to affect your active most of the time. This can affect any of your Pokemon, even benched ones. So in theory, you can even heal like multiple Pokemon in a turn, whereas Radiant Gardevoir is not going to. So again, both Pokemon seem kind of similar at a glance, but there are, again, certain instances where this could be better than Radiant Gardevoir. I think it takes a lot to not play Radiant Greninja as your Radiant Pokemon of choice. And so I don't think this is going to be like a widespread card that you see. But, you know, for decks that already would be looking to Radiant Gardevoir, I think they at least have to consider Serena, since it does fill kind of a similar role in that deck. So it's an okay card. Nothing amazing, though. All right, we have Zarude. I think this was an early reveal, if I remember correctly. And let's see. Drag off. Switch one of your opponent's Pokemon. Nothing special. Triple whip. Flip 3 coins. This is, for a holo rare, this is actually surprisingly mediocre. Cool artwork. I mean, I like the way this Zarude looks, but man, they've just been striking out on these Zarude cards. We've seen so many at this point, and none of them are really that great. This one is no exception. But we have Calyrex up next. Getting its first non-Shadow Rider Ice Rider card. So let's see. King's Command 30. You may search your deck for 2 cards. Okay. That's kind of cool. This is a basic as well. So there is a world where, you know, turn 1 of the game, if we are going second, we can use this and, you know, get a couple cards and get set up. But the second attack is pretty awful. Not very good at all. And I'm still not a big fan of this. Like, because your opponent can just like evolve into Drizzile, grab Marnie, reset your hand, or evolve into Arceus, use Starbirth to grab Marnie, reset this. And this really isn't a great attack past like the first turn of the game, going second. Yeah, again, this is another holo rare, and it's a legendary, so you would think this card would be given, you know, a little bit of a better treatment here, but not a great card. Not a big fan. We do have another fire Pokemon that we got Entei here. If this Pokemon has any fire energy attached, has no retreat cost. Okay, that makes sense. You're a fire Pokemon, you're probably gonna have no retreat cost. That's cool. The attack is pretty bad though. Man, these cards are striking out a little bit, I gotta say. But I guess maybe if you're playing some sort of fire deck, you could just like perpetually, like you can just at any point magma base into your Entei and just have it always in play as like a pivot Pokemon. I'd rather just play a copy Bear Balloon or switch. So this seems pretty weak. Okay, we got Reshiram V, another card we previously have seen. I think it was actually one of the first cards we saw get revealed for this set. But first attack, for fire energy, search your deck for up to 2 basic energy and attach them to one of your Pokemon play, then shuffle your deck. And then White Blaze 200, flip a coin of tails. This Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. I don't think we're going to use this attack, if I'm being honest though, guys, because it is kind of clunky to get set up in a single turn. And being a 220 HP basic means that we can actually pretty easily get bossed and knocked out if we do have to take multiple turns to get set up. And we're weak to water, and Palkia is very, very good. So I don't think this is ever going to be our main attacker. I think if this card were to see play, it would be for this first attack, because the one thing that's really nice about it, it does not specify fire energy. It just says basic energy. So guys, we can even power up like dragon Pokemon and other Pokemon with like weird attack costs. But I feel like this is almost just kind of like a worse version of Arceus V at that point. Yeah, so I think this is the only attack that it really has going for it, and it's not even a particularly great one. So probably going to pass on Reshiram, unfortunately. Okay, so next up we have an evolution line I'm actually, I think, a bit of a fan of. So we have Braixen and Delphox, and both actually are kind of relevant here. Oh, and actually the Fennekin, I just realized this card, it actually does have a little bit of synergy here too with the lead attack. But the Braixen, I think, is actually probably the star of the show, if I'm being honest. It has the Flare Parade attack. It is 60 for each Serena in your discard pile. Serena's going to be a new supporter card, and it's actually pretty decent. It has like a draw effect and a gust effect. So we just want to chuck these cards away, hit for a lot of damage. That is the idea. And the math for this attack actually is kind of decent, because if we have all 4 Serenas in the discard, that's 240 damage. So with a choice belt, we're going to be bumped up to 270. So that's knocking out a lot of Pokemon VSTAR. And at that point, we're only a Galarian Zigzagoon ping away from, you know, finishing off some of those 280 HP Pokemon like Arceus, you know, Palkia, Giratina. And this is all for just a single twin energy, I want to point out too. So this Braixen honestly hits pretty hard and is pretty low maintenance to get up and running. So I like this. The Delphox also does have some attacks that kind of fit in line here too. It has the same attack, the Flare Parade attack, but this one's just a single energy. Same attack though. I do wish this was a higher damage modifier. Like if this was 70, that would actually be amazing, because then we would be guaranteed a one-shot on VSTARs, but that is not what we were dealt with this, unfortunately. It does have another attack for 2 colorless energy, 50 for each energy your opponent has in play. So that's okay, but I think most of the time Flare Parade's going to be our best attack. And honestly, I don't even know if you play Delphox in this hypothetical deck. Not Serena, but Breaks In already does basically the same thing. The entire evolution line is level ball searchable, so I really like that as well. And you might not even need to play Devil Turbo Energy, which would normally reduce your damage output. I think you could probably even just get away with playing like Twin Energy plus Magma Basin and some Fire Energies, because that would also open you up to maybe playing Radiant Charizard as your Radiant Pokemon of choice. So yeah, I like the Breaks In. I think this is one of the best cards we've seen so far. Definitely looking forward to trying this thing out once it releases. Okay, so we have Volcanion, which is kind of like a pseudo reprint or a spiritual successor to an old card. We had a white, I think it was white Kyurem in the past that did something kind of similar to this. But the second attack here for Fire colors does 80 plus 80 more if you have any water energy attached. So again, kind of like the inverse of the old white Kyurem card. I think that was the same thing, but you needed fire energy if my memory serves me correctly. But either way, taking a look at this card, I'm not too stoked about this. Like 160 is decent. That is like a decent 2-shotting number for VMAXs, but you need 3 energy. One has to be a different type. Like I think probably the easiest way to power this up is actually probably the whole Lost engine. So maybe if Metal Pokemon or some other Fire Weak Pokemon catch on, you can maybe consider playing like Volcanion and some sort of Lost engine based deck as like a tech for whatever theoretical deck we're trying to beat. But I don't think this card is too impressive. Like overall, like I don't think you're building around Volcanion here. You don't really one-shot anything in the game. There's not a whole lot of popular Pokemon right now that are weak to fire either. So kind of a swing and a miss, but it's kind of nice they are giving like a nod back to some of these older, fan favorite cards of the past, but overall not too great. Okay, we have, looks like a mediocre Salazzle. Okay, and we have what is going to be like the mascot of this whole set. That's going to be the Alolan Vulpix line. Again, kind of weird they're not giving us Alolan Ninetales, but I guess they think Alolan Vulpix is equally as marketable. But so checking out the V here, I think this first attack is actually kind of okay. We don't really want Vulpix in the active spot, but if we are forced to, this attack isn't too bad. 10 plus 50 if your opponent's active is a Pokemon V, so that might be able to set up some math for a future attack. And it's 0 energy, so we can still commit more energies to maybe like our next Alolan Vulpix. So it has that going for us. Definitely not the the most impressive card in the world on its own though. But the VSTAR bumps up to 240 HP, so a bit on the weaker side. Not a big fan of that. But this first attack is pretty cool. For a water 2 colors, does 160, and this damage isn't affected by any effects. Only your opponent's active. And during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon from Pokemon with abilities. So pretty cool attack. It's not like the heaviest hitting attack in the world, but it's very flexible because you're going to cut through even some of those annoying wall Pokemon like Miltank or Duraludon. But I'm actually not a big fan of that too. Like we've been seeing a lot of these shred style of attacks lately, and kind of bums me out because I do like having these wall Pokemon as like an option in the game. And so I think it just makes the format a little less interesting, but either way, it's still a good side effect of this attack. And then preventing damage done to this Pokemon by Pokemon with abilities is really good as well. Because you got to think, right now we have cards like Arceus VSTAR, Palkia VSTAR, soon to be the Hisuian Zoroark VSTAR. So there's a lot of good stuff running around that this is going to, shut down essentially. But I think it's going to be kind of hard to probably build around this attack just because there are so many decks that don't need abilities. And with having such low HP, I don't think you're going to stand much of a chance against them, especially also since your attack doesn't do that much damage either. But then the V-Star power for 0 energy, 70 times the amount of Pokemon V your opponent has in play. So, oh, and it says don't apply weakness and resistance. That's kind of a bummer. But this is kind of cool because it does give you theoretically at least like a big one-shotting option for your deck. Since your main attack isn't the strongest, this could be like a nice closing attack. So think of a deck like Mew V Max. That's a deck that already can pretty easily get around this sort of attack on your Alolan Vulpix. So this at least gives you some sort of big guaranteed one-hit KO against a Mew at some point, which is cool. But again, I think Vulpix probably needs a partner. So I think Palkia VSTAR is going to be the most likely candidate, that or Arceus, just because they can help power up Vulpix and they're a little bit sturdier, a little bit tankier. I think it's kind of odd that this is like the main mascot of the set because it's a decent card. Like, I think this is good, but it's not, it definitely doesn't strike me as being on like the same power level as some of these other mascots, again, like the Arceus, Palkia, Giratina, etc. So decent card, but I'm hoping that doesn't mean the rest of the set is kind of mediocre, because if this is like in theory the best card in the set they're trying to give us, that would definitely be a little bit of a letdown. But it's okay, it's just not like completely like game breaking or anything. Alrighty, so we have Articuno up next. I think this one actually did get revealed the past couple days as well. But for 2 water, it is 70, and you can do 50 to yourself, and your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So auto paralysis is definitely pretty cool. That's a really strong status condition, since your opponent can't attack at all. They can't retreat out of it. They have to have some sort of switching card if they want to get around this. But that being said, a lot of decks play switch. You know, a lot of decks are still playing the Inteleon engine. So I think most decks are probably going to have an out to the paralysis when they need it. And also if decks like the Lost Zone based decks from Lost Origin catch on, they're playing a billion switching cards as well. And this might not stick. And if the paralysis isn't sticking, it's kind of like, well, why? Like, what are we doing here? Because we can't Melanie to this thing. So we're also going to have to manually attach to Articuno over the course of several turns. Or we're going to have to like burn our Palkia VSTARs, you know, V-Star power to power this thing up, and that feels really bad. Okay, we have a new Milotic. Oh, and we also have Phoebus with Ascension, so that's kind of cool. You can at least evolve right away. Let's check out Milotic here. 50 to 1 of your opponent's Pokemon, and then 60 for 2. Your opponent's active is asleep. What? This is so bad. Why is this card getting like a trainer gallery card? Yeah, pretty bad. Actually really surprised by how bad this Milotic is, but hey, I guess this is just meant to be in the set to, you know, make collectors happy, I'm guessing, but pretty weak Milotic. Kind of surprised. But looking ahead, we have Love Disc, not too great. We have Kyogre, okay. I do think I remember this card getting revealed ahead of time, but search your deck for water energy, attach it to this Pokemon. Then Dynamic Wave, put 3 energy, attach this Pokemon into your hand, then does 180 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Yeah, this seems pretty weak overall. Like this is a pretty decent amount of HP for a 1 prize basic, but so many decks still just knock you out. So if you're using this attack to accelerate energy, you're probably just going to lose it on your opponent's next turn. And then this attack cost is so steep here for 4 energy, and you're doing 180. Now, I guess you can snipe, which is cool. And this will actually knock out Crobats and Lumineon, so that's nice. I don't think we're ever playing this in like a Palkia deck, though. I think if we are playing this, more than likely this would be for some sort of Frostmoth deck. And that should kind of be a bit of a red flag. Frostmoth hasn't been very good in a long time. Pretty low impact card, I think, overall. Alrighty, next we have Radiant Alakazam. I am stoked, guys, because Alakazam never gets love in the TCG. So it's kind of a rare occurrence. It's a big deal when Alakazam gets a new card. So let's check this guy out here. Ability, once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another one of their Pokemon. Okay. And then Mind Ruler for Psychic Colorist, 20 for each card in your opponent's hand. So I actually do like this card. It's kind of cool. I don't think the attack is anything too special overall, because you would need, what, like 14 cards in your opponent's hand if you do want to take a one-shot on a V-Star. So not too great, but the ability I think is actually pretty cool here. Like if your opponent like retreats, you can, you know, move their damage counters around, set up math to take knockouts on maybe a fresh attacker that they try to promote. With Scoop Up Net, we can reuse Alakazam to, again, do this multiple times a turn as well. I'm trying to think. Oh, we do have, we actually have Hisuian Typhlosion VSTAR. So, not a particularly great card up until this point, but it does have a pretty good VSTAR power if they have 4 damage counters on themselves. They're knocked out. So, Alakazam could be a way to set that up. We have Hisuian Samurott VSTAR. They need damage counters on them to be able to get that 100 damage buff, I think, from Samurott's attack. I forget. So this seems pretty cool. I do like Alakazam. I'm sure maybe there's some other combo that I'm blanking on right now, but I feel like there's going to be cool uses for this ability. We'll have to see. I definitely could be wrong about that, but you know, or maybe I'm just blind to the fact that we're getting a new Alakazam card. I'm just excited about that. But I like the ability. I'm hopeful at the least that something cool will be done with this. Okay, so we have a new Jinx with an ability here. Crazy artwork on this thing too, very wild. But the ability here says if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from your opponent's Pokemon V's attack, your opponent doesn't take a prize card. Okay, I like this. This is very much so. It gives me like the same vibes as a card like Lily's Pokédoll and these other sorts of like wall Pokemon targets. One of the things I'm a fan of are like the hit and run style of decks. Like we have the Rapid Strike Mian Xiao right now. We have a Greedent still in format as well. So there are some of these like hit and run style decks where you attack and promote something. And they haven't been that great lately, partially because they don't have many great like wall Pokemon to promote. And Jinx could be good because they don't get a prize. That is really, really cool. I guess you could also play Miltank for the same reason. They kind of... I guess now I'm thinking about it, they fill the same sort of role. But this also could be good maybe for like control decks out there that just keep looping these Jinxes and, you know, like make sure your opponent can't win the game as you are trying to like lock them down or deck them out. So this could be cool for that. And the attack for 2 colorless energy, 10+10 for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. Maybe this could be a finisher in some sort of deck. Like if you are playing some sort of 2-hit KO oriented deck, like let's just say Arceus as an example, you're going to hit them for 180 since you have double turbo, more than likely. That's not taking a one shot, so you come in with something like Jinx on the next turn and finish them off. So I think this card is cool. I can see how this might see some play. Okay, next we have Mewtwo. Let's see, Mewtwo here. Attach up to 2 Psychic Energy from discard to one of your Pokemon. Not the worst thing, but Psychic colorless is 90. If you have 3, or if your opponent has 3 or fewer prizes remaining, this attack does 90 more damage. So kind of weak. I don't know what it is. We've been seeing a lot of these legendary Pokemon get printed as holo rares in the set, and they're all like kind of mid. I'm not going to lie. Okay card, just nothing special though, unfortunately. Okay, now we have Gardevoir. We did see this already. Nothing too special, honestly, about the Ralt or the Gardevoir. But the Curly in particular is where this evolution line could be good. So it has this ability, you can discard a card from your hand and draw 2. So this is the same ability we have on things like Cinccino and Liepard. I still think for the moment Cinccino is probably the better of the 3 Pokemon, since the Minccino also has a good attack. And also, I guess you technically can attack with Cinccino as well, whereas it's going to be a little bit harder to attack with this. So for the moment, in a non-Gardevoir or Gallade deck, Cinccino is just better. But of course, we are eventually going to lose Cinccino in next year's rotation, so we are going to have to look to something else. And Curly is probably the best one between this and Liepard. It's level ball searchable. The Ralts is also fog crystalable, if that's a word. And if we do start to see any Gardevoir or Gallade EX once the Scarlet and Violet cards come out, this actually could be a pretty good like middle evolution for this hypothetical Gardevoir EX that honestly is just inevitable. It's going to be printed. Gardevoir has had representation in every like new ultra rare card mechanic. So I think long term this card might see some play, but for the moment it's probably not going to. I'll at least point out the Gardevoir. It does have an attack for 120. And its ability is the same as Curly, which makes no sense to me. Like, this really should be discard 1, draw 3. That would make a lot more sense. Or maybe like discard up to 2, draw 2 for each card you discard. But having the same ability as Curly just makes absolutely no sense to me. Okay, but next up we have Mawile VSTAR, another card we did see in advance already, unfortunately. But I think this is kind of a cool card. 260 HP, it is a little bit on the weaker side. in terms of HP, but both the attack and the ability are definitely like callbacks to some older cards that we've had over the years. First attack for 2 colorless energy does 90 plus 90 more if you move from the bench to the active spot this turn. Then the ability, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may use this, switch this Pokemon with your active, then switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. So we have essentially Guzma in the form of an ability. Guzma, of course, is an old supporter. It's basically just boss's orders, but you also switch. And then this attack is basically the old Golisopod GX, which was a very popular card for its time as well, and kind of just smushed both of those into this Mawile here. So I really do want to like this card a lot, just because I think this ability is great. This attack is very easy to get up and running. Just a single double turbo energy. That's cool. But unfortunately, Mawile gets one shot by so much stuff right now. And even though I think what is effectively 160 for a single attachment isn't that bad, it's just, we're not taking hits with Mawile. We can't even knock out basic Pokemon V. Like, to knock out a Crobat V, you're going to need Choice Belt. So it's another additional hoop you're going to have to jump through just for a cheap multi-prize KO. So I really want to like this card. And hopefully it still will catch on, because this, I could definitely see myself playing a deck like this. But the damage output and the total HP of Mawile, I think it's just a little bit too low for me to be on board with it right now, at least. Okay, next up we have Meowstic, another early reveal that we saw from this set, but has this ability whenever you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn. You may search your deck for up to 2 supporter cards and put them into your hand. So this is, you know, I think at a glance like a poor man's Drizzile or a poor man's Inteleon, just because like Drizzile, it's also a level ball searchable stage 1, and Drizzile, you know, it's one fewer card that you get, but you can get any card, which I think is worth the decrease in the total amount of cards you get, because not only can you get a supporter if you need one, but also you can get stadiums, you can get items, tools, etc. And you can't play more than one supporter in a turn anyways, so getting an extra supporter off this is commonly or frequently not going to be that impactful. But the one use we could see for this is maybe with the breaks in deck we took a look at earlier here, because you can grab 2 Serenas, you can play one and pitch the other one away in the process. So this could maybe see play in that sort of deck. I want to say the Inteleon line might still just be better, just because of how flexible it is just in general, but maybe some hope in the breaks in deck. But outside of that, I'm not a huge fan of this card. Okay, so we have Tapu Lele here. Has Energy Burst, so this is actually kind of a cool attack for just 2 colorless, does 20 for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So this is kind of a callback to Tapu Lele GX, which had the same attack and was actually a, you know, Tapu Lele GX is one of the most format defining cards ever printed, but it wasn't for the attack. The attack on Lele was just kind of just a bonus. It's really the ability that made that card so good. Still, it's kind of nice to see a callback to that card, and this is kind of a splashable attacker that we have here. You know, it is just a single twin or double turbo energy. You know, most attackers right now are going to have between like 2 and 3 energy on them at a time, so it's going to be very difficult to ever scale this up to like a meaningful amount of damage. It's not impossible that this card could see play, but it's definitely, I think, pretty low impact though. Alrighty guys, so we have Radiant Jirachi. I think it's going to be our last Radiant Pokemon if I just had to guess. But yeah, Radiant Pokemon, level ball searchable, 90 HP, that is pretty cool. Do like that. But the ability, if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, search your deck for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So yeah, this is a really sick ability. Like, I really do like this a lot, because instead of like using this as an attack and your opponent can Marnie you, you know, this gets activated after their turn essentially. So you're going to be guaranteed to keep these 3 cards. And you can do some cool stuff with this. Like, you can play this in like some sort of hit and run style deck to maybe promote Jirachi, force them to knock it out, get you some cards to set up your next turn. You might even be able to play this in like control decks, because you can actually get this thing back with like a rescue carrier or even ordinary rod if you really want to. And while you're trying to set up and lock down your opponent, you just keep promoting these Jirachis, let your opponent knock them out, and help set up your deck a little bit better. So that's kind of cool. But, you know, those hit and run style decks aren't that great right now. And control, we'll see what happens with that. Control hasn't been that great in you know, quite some time as well. So if we have Jirachi in the active, the main way we're going to do that is if we're attacking with it. And if we are attacking with it, I got bad news for us because this attack isn't too great. For 2 colorless energy, we flip 2 coins. If both are heads, your opponent's active is knocked out. So yeah, theoretically being able to take a big one-shot for just a twin energy is kind of enticing, but the issue is we have to flip 2 heads, and even with a Glimwood Tangle in the mix, our odds aren't that great. And it's not like we can play 4 of these, and if Jirachi gets knocked out, we can easily try this again. No, we have just 1 Radiant Jirachi in our whole deck. So we would need to play like heavy counts of Rescue Carrier if we do want to keep trying to reuse this attack over and over until we get that magical double heads. So again, I think the only hope for this is if maybe hit and run style decks or control decks might could make use of this, but right now I don't have the most hope in that. Okay, we do have a new Kling Klang, and again, another card we did see get revealed ahead of time, if I remember correctly, because this ability does look familiar to me. It says whenever we play this Pokemon from hand to evolve one of our Pokemon, we can search a deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and attach them to our Pokemon in any way that we like. So this is actually like kind of a cool ability. We can search for any basic energy, it doesn't have to be metal energy. And we, in theory at least, can reuse this with Scoop Up Net. But guys, this is a stage 2. Like, I love stage 2 Pokemon, but this is not the type of ability I want on a stage 2, or not on a stage 2 that isn't attacking. Like, if Kling Kling had a solid attack of its own, I would love this. But as a form of energy acceleration for your deck, ArcESV can do this on the first turn of the game going second. We also have the new Lost Engine coming out in Lost Origin. That's another way we can pretty easily accelerate multiple types of energy. I like the ability, but it's just on the wrong Pokemon here, so probably not going to see a whole lot of play. Okay, we have a Zacian. So let's see, 20 plus 10 for each of your benched Pokemon. And damage isn't affected by weakness or any other effect on your opponent's active Pokemon. So again, another sort of like shred-ish style of attack here. Pretty low impact, I've got to say. Like, if we do have a full bench, you know, we're doing what, 70? Doesn't seem that great, guys, I gotta say. I mean, I guess in theory, this could be like a good Sobble killer. Like, first turn going second, we fill our bench, use this to just pick off a Sobble. So that actually might be okay, because like, if you're playing, let's just say, a Zacian V deck, powering up 3 energy to use Brave Blade on turn 1 is going to be very difficult to do. And do you really want to do all of that work just to take a 1 prize knockout? So maybe this could be actually useful in some sort of metal deck, because we can knock out Comfies, we can knock out Sobbles, Bidoofs. Okay, so the more I think about it, the more I could see this as a one of, but definitely not like a earth-shattering card by any stretch of imagination, but maybe it could see play. We also have Zamazenta. Makes sense. So if this Pokemon has any energy attached, takes 30 less damage from attacks. Okay, we still only have 130 HP, so that doesn't really matter, I hate to say. But then Revenge, if your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, does 120 more. Okay, so this actually is a pretty decent Revenge style attack for a single prize Pokemon. 220 can knock out, you know, basic Pokemon V running around. So a lot of the time, this is basically just going to be like a single prize version of Brave Blade, which that's kind of enticing. The issue is you're not going to ever really stick around for more than 1 turn. Like, even with this ability, your opponent only has to do 160, which is pretty doable for almost every deck running around. Like, you would need Radiant Gardevoir to bump you up to 180 and a Cape of Toughness. That would get you up to effectively 230. You would also probably need the new Lake Acuity to reduce damage even more. Like, you would need a lot of damage modifiers for this, or a lot of damage reduction modifiers to make this ability ever worth it. But this seems okay. It's just like, it's not a bad card, like at all, but it's just not anything special though either. Okay, we have Magearnavi, which is a card we have not previously seen. Gear Throw 30 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Nothing special. And then Special Laser 100 plus 120 more if you have any special energy attached. So I think, if my memory serves me correctly, this is the same attack we have on the Necrozma V, but for metal Pokemon. I mean, guys, this is just pretty weak. Like, if we're playing a basic metal Pokemon that hits for 200-ish damage, we're just playing Zacian V, and Intrepid Sword's just too good not to play. or even the Zamazenta V we got back in Brilliant Stars seems better than this. So kind of striking out, guys. It's been a while since we've seen like an actual good card in this set. So we don't have too many left. We're about to enter colorless Pokemon, so really hoping we have some other good stuff here. But yeah, Magearna is just not doing it. So we have Ho-Oh, another card we have seen in the past already, but it has a pretty cool ability. It says if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put this card onto your bench. If you do, attach up to 4 energy or 4 basic energy cards from your discard to this Pokemon, but your turn ends. So I like this ability a lot, but obviously the turn ending part is what makes this card kind of sus, because really this ability is only ever good on like the first turn of the game, because you really want to be attacking by turn 2. So you would need to be able to find Ho-Oh, get it into the discard, and get 4 energy into the discard as well on turn 1 of the game. And especially if you're going first and can't play a supporter, this can be a little bit challenging. So I really want to like this ability because it's cool. And there's some neat things we can do with this. Like, you know, if the stars align and everything works out, we can use this, get Ho-Oh to play with a bunch of energy. And then we can use the Thornton supporter that we're getting in Lost Origin and transform Ho-Oh into a different Pokemon. So it can be a way at getting energy acceleration for types that kind of struggle to get up and running maybe. But its attack here as well for 4 energy appropriately does 100 plus 30 more damage for each type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. So you can see what they're pushing you to do. At least you want to get this into play with this ability and then do a lot of damage with this attack. So if we have 4 different types, we're doing 220 for 4. That seems a little bit questionable to me. I'm not that crazy about this, but I guess in theory we could like set this up and then we could actually still do things like we can Trinity Nova with Arceus and dump a bunch of extra energies onto this thing. But this kind of just seems like a big gimmick. So unless we get something like Battle Compressor, or maybe there's some trainer card in this set we can look at that'll help this, but without some way at being able to quickly get all of these pieces into the discard, the ability is kind of weak. Okay, so we have Altaria, another very early reveal that we got out of the set. That's kind of a cool attack here. Magical Echo for 2 colorless energy. We move all damage counters from one of our bench Pokemon to our opponent's active Pokemon. So kind of cool. Not only do we damage our opponent, but we're healing off all of our damage in the process. Hypothetically, if we're playing this in Arceus, since this is going to be powered up with a double turbo energy more than likely, your opponent's going to swing on Arceus, you pivot into the bench, use Altaria, heal off all that damage in the process. Even with that, I'm not that crazy about this card because in the case of Arceus, we can just play like Sharon's Care to accomplish the same thing. In terms of like other Pokemon out there, like we're going to have the Suian Zoroark VSTAR that will also attack for double turbo energy. But we want our Pokemon to have damage. In the case of Zoroark, I don't think we actually want to move damage off. So even though on paper, I think this attack is kind of cool, I'm just like, what are we doing with this? That's kind of my issue that I'm having with this card. You know, maybe this could see play in like, you know, like a Ston Journer VMAX, Hisuian Goodra VSTAR sort of deck like that. But I can't help but be just a little bit underwhelmed with the card overall. Maybe if this was a basic, that could have been better, or maybe if this was a single energy, that would make it more splashable. But yeah, it's okay. Just nothing special, which seems to be the running theme of this set so far, unfortunately. Okay, we have Smeargle up next. Smeargle usually gets at least mechanically interesting cards. So we look at the top 5 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic energy cards you find there to one of your Pokemon. Then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Okay. You know, this is cool. It's kind of like a universal form of energy acceleration. We can pair this with any type of Pokemon, which is great. We can even use this with like the amazing rares potentially, because of course we can use different types of energy, but we really need to be playing like an extremely high count of basic energies for this to actually work. Like we're really realistically gonna need like 20 something energy if we want to hit multiple. Because if we're just hitting like 1 energy at a time, or even 2, I feel like that we can't justify playing this Smeargle. I think otherwise we would just rather play the comfy, like Lost Engines sort of thing for our deck instead. So, I mean, what would we play this with? Like, what attacker out there wants a lot of energy? Maybe like Flareon VMAX or something. I know I'm really like scraping the bottom of the barrel here. That's one of the only cards I can think of that would like something like this. Yeah, probably not the greatest in the world. Or maybe Turbo Dark, okay. Oh, and also speaking of the Ho-Oh, that's another card that maybe could have been good in theory for Turbo Dark. Probably pretty low impact card, but there are some sort of like niche things you can do with this Smeargle. Okay, and we've reached the end of our Pokemon, so that's not very encouraging. We didn't see a whole lot of interesting Pokemon, so I'm really hoping our trainer cards kind of pick up the slack for the set. So we have Capture Aroma here. Flip a coin of heads, search your deck for an evolution, reveal, put it into your hand. If tails, search your deck for a basic, reveal and put it into your hand. If you search your deck in this way, shuffle your deck. So actually not a horrible card. You know, unlike a card like the Egg Incubator card or like Pokeball, we have a guaranteed search no matter the result of the coin flip. And though I don't think this probably sees play immediately, we do have to remember we are going to see a rotation happen early next year. And if we do wind up losing cards like Quick Ball and Evolution Incense, this definitely could be a potential consistency like search card for decks going forward. Just up until then, probably not going to be too great just because we do have cards like Evolution Incense and Quick Ball that are, you know, pretty good. They get the job done right now. I don't think there's much of a need for this, but definitely I think an item card we could keep an eye out for. Okay, Emergency Jelly. I think I remember this one getting revealed. Pokemon tool, at the end of each turn, if the Pokemon this card is attached to has 30 HP or less remaining, has any damage counters on it, heal 120 from that Pokemon, then discard this card. Even if you do have 30 HP on your Pokemon, you know, bumping them up to 150 HP again doesn't really do anything. Like, you're still just going to get two-shotted either way. I think the only world where this sort of card could be impactful is if our Pokemon has some sort of ability, like there's a Dawn fan, I think it's in, I want to say Lost Thunder. It's in one of the Sun and Moon era sets, but basically if it has full HP and gets one-shotted, it goes down to 10 HP instead. So abilities like that are where this card actually could really shine. I don't think we have anything like that in the current format, if my memory serves me correct. I mean, again, guys, these are just my first impressions, my knee-jerk reactions. Maybe there's something in the card pool that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but those are going to be the cards that this would ever see play for. And we haven't really seen any like that in this set either. So right now seems pretty bad, but if we see more of those styles of Pokemon like I outlined, this could be a way to just heal them all the way back up to full health and force your opponent into continuing to having to like 2 and 3 and maybe even 4-shot them, depending on how many of these tools you get down. So maybe a card with a little bit of long-term potential. Okay, next up we finally have the Serena card I've mentioned a few times. I actually really do like this. So you have 2 different effects you can choose from. You can discard up to 3 cards from your hand, and you do have to discard at least 1, but then you draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. But it has another effect where you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon V with their active Pokemon. So this is kind of cool. You have kind of like a nerfed version of Boss and like a nerfed version of Research kind of all jumbled together here, which is really cool. And one of the issues that like gusting supporters like Boss have is that if you draw them in the first like 2, sometimes even 3 turns of the game, they're just kind of sitting there dead in your hand. Like, especially think of how many games you've had where you've opened with a Boss's Orders and no draw supporters, and you're just like, what am I going to do with this hand? And Serena kind of fixes that a little bit. Now, that's not to say I think decks are going to stop playing Boss. I definitely don't think that's the case. Especially as we do get into the Scarlet and Violet era of cards, this card becomes much, much worse. But there are certain decks out there that I could see playing this. Just right out the gate, I don't think Inteleon decks will play this, because if they have the ability to search out any card they want, they could just choose to search a draw supporter instead of this. I think this would see play more so in decks that don't have that sort of like searching option at their disposal. But I think of a deck like Mad Party as an example. I think this is a pretty good example of a deck that would consider this. Because you already don't play like a very high count of supporters in a deck like that, and you'd like honestly more copies of Boss and more draw supporters in your deck, and this does a great job at providing both options for you. Or think of like the Lost Engine based decks out there. They don't play like very high counts of supporters as it is, so there might even be a world where you play just one of these instead of like maybe a 3rd Boss or something. Just to give yourself an out to maybe drawing some more cards. Or maybe if you're a deck that plays 4 Boss's Orders, I'm probably changing one of them to a Serena at that point, just because it's effectively another out to drawing cards if your hand is dead. So I like Serena. I think this is a cool card. Like I said, I think it gets progressively much worse the more Scarlet and Violet sets get added to the card pool next year. But in the meantime, I could see a world where this sees play, you know, obviously in the Breaks in deck, but even in some decks outside of that as well. We have next up Furisode Girl. I think that's how you pronounce that thing. Supporter card says search your deck for a basic, put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck, and then you may switch that Pokemon with your active. So if this was an item card, I would be all for this thing, but as a supporter, no chance. I am not playing this. Like, there's cool things we can do with this. Like, we can, for example, search your deck for a Miltank, or even the new Jinx that we looked at, immediately switch into that and just sort of wall with that while we're trying to get set up. Or even Diancie, that's another one to throw out there too. But just as a supporter, this is a very, very weak effect, because a lot of times if we play a research, we might even be able to just hit Ultra Ball plus switch and do the same thing. So this seems very low impact. We also have Wallace, another new supporter card. It says we draw 3 and your opponent may draw a card. If they do, draw 1 more card. So, I mean, I think you would like probably try to play this in maybe like some sort of mill or control deck to maybe bait your opponent into decking themselves out a little bit quicker. But the big issue, your opponent can just choose not to. Like, if you are playing a deck like Durant or some sort of control deck, your opponent knows what you're doing. They're not going to expedite the milling process for you. So I think most of the time you're probably just drawing 3 with this. And it looks like our last card is going to be V-Guard Energy, which another early reveal, so I am a little bit familiar with this one already. But it provides colorless energy, and the Pokemon it's attached to takes 30 less damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V. Most obviously, this would be for decks like Hisui and Goodra VSTAR that are trying to tank hit to make sure they don't get one-shot. I could also maybe even see this for like mirror matches in certain decks. Like, think of like Giratina VSTAR. If you're in the mirror match, both players can pretty easily one-shot each other. And by playing like 1 or 2 copies of this in your deck, now you have an out to force your opponent into 2-shotting your Giratina while you still can one-shot them. That seems cool. We also have Blissey V still, so that seems nice. Oh, should point out, we can't apply more than 1 of these effects at a time, which is definitely important to point out in the case of Blissey. Because otherwise you would just like jam 4 of these on your Blissies and just say lol GG. But yeah, this seems like probably too good not to play at least as a 1-of in Blissey decks. Maybe in, like, I guess you can play this in the Reggie deck, though I don't think the 30 reduction makes much of a difference most of the time. But yeah, I can definitely see some uses for this card. Not going to be like super broken, not going to pop up in every deck out there, but a decent note to end this first look at these cards on. But overall, guys, as you can tell, I think this set is probably one of the weakest we've seen in a while. Like, to be fair, we still have another Japanese set to go before these cards come out in Silver Tempest, but based on what we've seen here today, there's not a whole lot to really get excited about. Let's just quickly scroll back through. Serena, like I said, this and the Breaks In sort of archetype definitely stood out to me. I like that, but man, we're gonna be scrolling for a while before we hit something good. Like, yeah, the Radiant Pokemon in the set were kind of a bust, I think. Serena might even be the best one, or the one that's the most likely to see play initially. Mawile's cool. I want to love this card, but it's a little bit underpowered. Let's see, Kirlia's good, but not right now. Jinx is kind of neat. Alakazam, it's dope to see him come back, and I really do like this ability. Again, I think there's just a big question mark about how this could be abused, though. But yeah, even Vulpix, like I said, the main mascot of this set it's good, it's decent, but I don't think this is like the next big tier 1 archetype. I mean, I could definitely be wrong, guys. You'll have to let me know what are going to be your full thoughts of these new cards. Do you think I'm being a little bit too harsh on these reveals that we saw today? Definitely feel free to let me know what you're thinking down below in the comments. But either way, I do appreciate you guys sticking with me today as we checked out these early card reveals. If you did wind up enjoying today's content, as always, remember to leave a like on the video. Or if you're feeling a little bit extra generous, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg, or you can pick up some merch over at rarecandytcg.com. Links to everything will be down below in the description. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.